Welcome to CKLA Chats. I am Team 3 DLC Foster-Yankey, and in this video, we are kicking off Unit 7 for 5th grade, which is all about A Midsummer Night's Dream. And this is Lesson 1. Okay, so Lesson 1 is divided into 4 components that make up the 90-minute ELA block. The first component is Shakespeare's Life and Times in small groups for 20 minutes. They'll move on to adjectives and acting warm-up about tone, whole group for 15 minutes. They'll play a hurly-burly Shakespeare game, whole group for 30 minutes, and then wrap up with 25 minutes of independent writing. So for the first component, Shakespeare's Life and Language, the teacher introduces students to the new unit by explaining that it's about William Shakespeare's play, A Midsummer Night's Dream. They'll ask students what they remember about Shakespeare and create an anchor chart or write it on the board. In groups of 3 to 4 students will reread Shakespeare-related sections of the reader from the Renaissance unit silently, and then complete activity page 1.1, which is here on the screen. As a check for understanding, as they read, the teacher should be circulating and checking in. For struggling students, they have questions that they can ask to help them identify key facts, such as when did Shakespeare live, in which era did he live, and what is he known for. Students will work on that for 10 minutes, then each group will share out with the class, and the teacher will write the facts that they share on the anchor chart or on the board. Then they will move on to talking about Shakespeare's plays in production. The teacher will introduce Shakespeare's plays in production by talking about the endurance of Shakespeare's plays, how they're still read, performed, and turned into films. They'll ask if students have seen any of his plays or films based on his plays and ask them to share out about it. They'll also talk about how different from one another the productions can be. They can be from different places and time periods. And they'll also talk about all the different ways that they can be performed. So although they all use Shakespeare's words, the choices of the actors, directors, and designers are interpretations. And that will come up throughout the unit, how each production is an interpretation. Next, they will move on to adjectives and acting warm-up tone. The teacher writes the word "oh" very large on the board and asks students to say it aloud. They talk about what it means. Then the teacher points out that it is an exclamation and its meaning depends on the word's context or the words around it. They'll project sentences from A Midsummer Night's Dream that use the exclamation "oh" and ask students what adjectives they would use to describe the character saying each sentence. They'll share the example of someone saying, "oh, excellent," likely feeling happy or satisfied. The teacher projects the adjectives one at a time, and students act them out with their voice, the adjectives describing the tone of their acting. The first adjective projected will be shared. The teacher is going to model saying "oh" in a scared voice and have students repeat it using their best scared voices. Then continue with the remaining adjectives. As a variation, after going through the list twice, the teacher could have 2 volunteers demonstrate their "oh" for the same adjective. The class then would discuss any differences between their choices, perhaps different expressions and sounds for the same emotion. To continue, the teacher would show lines from A Midsummer Night's Dream, some of which will not appear in the reader because they are reading a shorter version of the play. They'll have students read each line together in the tone listed below it. So for example, they'll read "oh, excellent" in an excited tone. There are more cards than this, but I couldn't get them all to fit on one slide. If students read with too much enthusiasm, the teacher corrects them by pausing and telling them to say the line loudly and stress the "oh." After students read some lines, the teacher has them point out the word in the line that links to the adjective. There are discussion prompts where the teacher asks students whether they can figure out what certain words mean based on the context and adjective. And again, as variation, after reading the lines, the teacher can have students stand up and repeat a few, expressing the tone in both their voice and their body. Then they will move on to the hurly-burly Shakespeare game component for 30 minutes. So ahead of class, the teacher should have prepared word slips in 3 envelopes or containers, one for adjectives, another for compound adjectives, and one for nouns. Students are going to pick a slip from each container or envelope and create a sentence in their minds by choosing a classmate's name, adding the word thou after it, then following that with their 3 words in the order adjective, compound adjective, noun. The teacher writes the model on the board, which is here, and reads a few examples. They'll explain to students that they don't need to know the meaning of every word. So students practice saying their greeting with expression, perhaps choosing an adjective as a direction. Then students form 2 lines and face each other, then greet each other by shaking hands and repeating the phrase they drew. They rotate down, having one student rotate down one student and repeat their greeting using the name of their new partner. They should try to remember as many of the words they hear as possible because when they are finished, they will be asked to list as many of the words as they can remember. And the winner will be master of the adjectives. The teacher can mix it up by having them change the adjective that describes their expression and deliver the line differently. So they have 3 to 4 minutes and they'll try to speak to as many classmates as possible. And the teacher will let them know that they will see many of these words in Act 1 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Then they move on to writing conversation for 25 minutes. The teacher has students turn to activity page 1.2 and reviews the prompts, which is some sentences can mean many things. Using the projected picture as inspiration and support, decide what the sentence above means. Then write a conversation between two of the characters in the picture, beginning with the sentence, "Oh me, what news, my love?" In the conversation, be sure to reveal what the news is and what relationship these 2 characters have. The teacher shows the digital projection and explains that it is a picture from a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and they'll learn more about the setting and characters in upcoming lessons. For the purposes of this activity, they are going to take the picture out of context, completing the activity based only on what they can see. As a check for understanding, the teacher circulates and check-ins with students as they work. If students are struggling, they should ask, where are the characters and what do you think they are discussing? If time permits, students share excerpts from their writing. Right. And that concludes the first lesson of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.